So now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Camilla Bridge. Camilla is our biology instructor and lab coordinator in the sciences department. She's held this very important position for 10 years now. In that work, she also has provided a number of interesting courses. She has taught introductory to biology and anatomy and physiology labs. She's taught the flora and fauna of St. Joseph's College campus. She's also taught public health in a developing country. And she has several scholarly interests, and one that she is focused on now is examining how living organisms act as indicators of overall environmental health, including the effects of mercury on the reproduction and behavioral systems in birds. As an educator, one of her critical goals, I guess the critical goal that she has, it's very simple, but it's extremely important, and it's, I think, the passion that she brings to her work. Her goal is to help each student move forward the best versions of themselves by providing skills, experiences, and guidance that allow them to make a positive impact on the world. And Camilla has been our faculty supervisor for 8 years now for the international service trips. And we really appreciate all the hard work that involves behind the scenes, and certainly during the trip itself. And one little fact about Camilla is her talent in the art of jewelry designing. She learned this trade through the Partners of Development program and the Haitian Gemstone Initiative that she and her husband Steve Bridge initiated back in 2013. So Camilla, welcome, and thanks so much for your valuable time to present to us. And take it away, please.
All right. Well, I want to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this presentation. It's a little strange for me to be not in, like in an auditorium, like talking to all of you. But I think it's actually a little bit more personal in some ways. So thank you for the introduction, Joanne. Yeah, so just a little bit about me. I've been at St. Joe's for 10.5 years. I'm a lab instructor, and I teach mostly first year students in biology. And I think the hands-on part of education is where it's at. That's like my passion. So not only do I teach science, I also like to provide this hands-on education that occurs when you travel abroad. I am one of the faculty supervisors for our international service trip program. My husband, Steve Bridge, also teaches here at the college. He's a theology professor. He started the international service trip program 16 years ago. And we've had over 600 participants in that time. So it's an extremely popular program at the college and is really a life-changing one. So I'm going to pull up my presentation here. So I want to just mention the organization that we travel with is Partners in Development, and they are located in Ipswich, Massachusetts. And I know Gail is on this call, so thank you for coming, Gail. We have been traveling to both Haiti and Guatemala with Partners in Development for, as I mentioned, 16 years, and we travel over winter break. And we bring up to 60 students a year on up to 4 different groups. So the stories and the images that I'm going to share are from the most recent trip, which was last year in December of 2019. We weren't able to go this year for obvious reasons, but last year was last year, the trip really had a lot of feels for me. It was like really moving and emotional for a number of students, and was for me as well. So that's those are the stories that I'm going to share. So the title of my talk is "A Broken Arm and a Bullet in the Spine: Transformative Stories from Guatemala." The image that you're looking at is showing one of the quintessential Guatemalan crafts are their textiles. And so we had the opportunity to watch textiles being made, and they take these organic materials, whatever it is, a plant, a berry, a rock, and they turn it into dye, and they dye their fabrics, then they weave the fabric so that the organic material itself becomes transformed. It's sort of in the same way that our students become transformed on these trips. And I totally matched the color of the yarn on my presentation, and I did not plan that at all, just so you guys know. The service trips are transformative and life-changing for two main reasons. And this theme plays out year after year after year. And you're going to see this theme in the stories that I share with you. The level of poverty that we see is truly shocking and unlike anything students have previously experienced. Also, though, regardless of their living circumstances, by and large, the people we serve are innately grateful and joyful. So that really, seeing that juxtaposition is really transformative for the students, because it prompts them to think about, like, okay, well, if this person's living in these harsh living circumstances, but they're still able to be happy, like, what's important to me? Like, what really makes me happy? And this self-exploration really empowers them to make positive change in the world. So I'm going to start by talking about the experience of Izzy. So Izzy is a biochemistry student here at St. Joe's in the class of 2022. And one of the projects that we worked on the last trip was actually throwing a Christmas party. It was awesome. A lot of the work we do is really hard labor. So there's a lot of construction. We staff medical clinics. Sometimes we provide educational training, and we got to like throw a Christmas party, and it was pretty fun. So Partners in Development has a child sponsorship program where children get free medical care, they get food for their families, and their education is paid for. So this Christmas party was for those children. So we were decorating, and we set up this whole a beautiful like party for these kids. And so the kids came, and I was just sort of like milling around taking pictures. Taking pictures has become one of the things that I do on the service trips. And I saw Izzy talking to this one young man. And this is a video I'm going to play for all of you. So I didn't know this going to the trip, but Izzy knows sign language. She learned in high school. And she was able to connect with a few people from the village that were deaf, that only spoke sign language. And I was really touched by that. And I sort of like stole this little video of her, and you can see at the end, she sees that I'm videotaping her. I'm gonna share just a little excerpt. So the students, as part of their service trip requirement, have to write a reflection paper afterward. And I've pulled some quotations and some excerpts from their reflection paper. So I'm just going to take a second and read Izzy's take on this exchange. She says, "For me, the best part of this trip was meeting a few deaf kids in the village. It was an amazing feeling to be able to communicate with people that otherwise would have felt isolated. One of the people I got to talk with that had a lasting impact on me was Eric. And although he had just met me, he felt comfortable enough to share his life with me. He told me about his very large family, about how his father passed away, and about what he hopes to become in the future. He told me about the work they're doing on his house and what he likes to do in his free time. Although it was only 20 minutes of my day, that one conversation is still on my mind today." So just that she had the talent to be able to like have a conversation with this person that probably doesn't have very many conversations with people was really touching for me. So here are a few quotes from Izzy here. And these are from her paper as well. My biggest motivation in going was the idea I could be part of something bigger than myself. I saw extreme poverty firsthand, and that was something I will never forget. The thing I saw that struck me the most, however, were the smiles. This trip has definitely changed the person I am. I now try to look at each day as a new opportunity to better myself and hopefully make a positive impact on the world. So the next student that I want to focus on is Lorelei. She graduated in the spring. She was a marketing student, and Lorelei has this like big, beautiful personality. She's just like exuberant and outgoing. Lorelei's originally from Colombia, so I was really excited that she was coming because she speaks Spanish and I don't speak Spanish. I speak like a little bit of like phrase Spanish. So I was really excited that she was coming, and she actually played a pretty integral role on our team by being a translator in the medical clinic. And during her time in the medical clinic, Lorelei met a young man named Lewis, and she had a really powerful exchange with him that I'm going to read to you from her reflection paper. While I was translating at the clinic, I had a patient named Lewis who was in a wheelchair. I asked what the reason of his visit to the clinic was, and he explained that he had ulcers from sitting down for too long. I could not help my nosy self, and because I could, I asked what happened to him. He went ahead and told me his story, and it broke my heart into so many pieces. He told me he was shot while he was working at a field when he was only 20 years old. I told him how sorry I was because he was so young, almost my age now. But what completely destroyed me was his response. He told me not to feel sorry for him, that it was an accident and that accidents happen. His response was a slap to my face because if I was in his situation, I would have been so mad at God for allowing this to happen. I would have been mad because I was so young and I still had so much to offer. Seeing that he accepted his situation was a life-changing moment for me. I told him that my prayer was that when Jesus comes again, that he would go to heaven and he would be able to walk there. He also told me that he stopped going to school because it was hard for him to get around. He told me he still lived with his parents and sister. He does not work and that the government does not help him. I did not want to cry in front of him, so I walked away and cried my eyes out because I felt so small and ungrateful. I was touched by this experience. It made me realize that I have absolutely nothing to complain about. Just observing Lorelei on the trip, she was very profoundly affected by this. Like she was pretty depressed for a few days on the trip. But here are a few quotes from her paper. I was amazed by the people and how happy they were. Despite their situation, they live every second of their lives as a blessing. This trip has inspired me to make personal changes because I learned that it's important to love and help others. And Lorelei actually gave a shout out to the Connections program at St. Joe's, which helps fund the cost of the trip for a lot of the students that go. And she says, I'm forever grateful to the Connections program at SJC for allowing students to use this opportunity to make a difference in their lives and the lives of others. The next students that I want to talk about are two of my advisees, Safa and Rowan. Rowan graduated in the spring, and I saw that she's on this call, so hi, Rowan. I don't know if Safa is. And Rowan's a senior. They are both from Iraq, and they're both just fantastic people. I was excited to have them on the trip because they bring a cultural element that is not usually present. And anytime that I can get my students in a room with other students that bring a different cultural, racial, religious background, I love doing that because learning from each other is a huge part of education. So I'm going to start with Rowan here, and these photos sort of set the scene for one of the events that I want to talk about. So at lunchtime, we're all like working hard, we're tired, we're hungry, we all gather at the table, you can see here, and we get served this amazing Guatemalan food, which like I miss it to this day. And so Rowan was just sitting at the table, and I don't know how the conversation started, but one of the other students on the trip asked her, like, how did you end up in the United States? And Rowan was able to tell her story to the entire group. And Rowan's story is really, really moving. She was actually shot, and her father, after that event, made the decision to move their family to the United States, like uproot their family and move to a new country. And when Rowan got here, she really struggled because she lost several years of high school when she came to the United States. So she had to start over again, and that was really tough for her. And she sort of like gave up for a little bit, but knowing Rowan doesn't give up. So she like plugged through it, is just has a lot of resiliency that I really admire. So just having our students be able to hear that life experience about a person that came to the United States and what it's like and how hard it was really touching for me to see. Rowan also wrote about how she really enjoyed sharing her culture with the Guatemalans as well. So I'm going to read just a little bit of that from her reflection paper. She says, I did not only learn about the Guatemalans' culture, but I got to tell them about mine too, the Iraqi culture. Before going on this trip, I had some worries about people looking and staring at me because of my hijab, just like here in the United States. But they did not stare in silence. They asked because they wanted to learn. Some of the Guatemalans were curious to learn about why I wear a hijab to cover my hair and what does it mean to be a Muslim. I was not only happy they were curious about me, but I was happy to teach them about my culture and my religion. Felipe, the man who helped us when we worked on painting one of the PID houses, was one of the people who wanted to learn about Islam. He asked to take a picture with me because he'd never seen people, Muslims like me. And he told me he wanted me to come back again to Guatemala. Meeting him was one of the highlights of my trip. So both Rowan and Safa said this in their papers. They said the sights and sounds and smells of Guatemala reminded them of home, reminded them of Iraq. So she says many things seemed familiar: the air, the streets, the bus we took to the hotel from the airport, the guys who helped with their luggage asking for tips, all these things I've seen in Iraq. And Rowan said, the trip was an experience of a lifetime for me. It made me realize that I was not only affecting the lives of people I was serving, but I was also changing for the better too. This trip gave me reassurance that there's still good in the world and I was part of it. And this is Safa, and so I had sort of the same observations of Safa, but this picture of Safa and Maria Jose, who is the field director in Guatemala, was just like, it just like epitomizes this. So Maria Jose was like, Safa, can you teach me how to wear a hijab? Can you show me how to put it on? So I was actually looking for Safa, and I was like, where's Safa? And so I was knocking on the clinic doors, and she's like, come in, I'm teaching Maria Jose how to wear a hijab. And so I came in and I took this photo, and it was just like, it was just so wonderful. And the picture on the right is actually Safa. She was so moved by the experience that she instantly wanted to sponsor a child. So she picked this little boy whose name is Angel, which I know is not how you pronounce it in Spanish, but I'm not gonna venture for that. But she got to meet him in person before she left, and like, he was like crying because he was really like scared, which Safa, if you're on the call, I don't know if you are, that happened to me the first time I had my sponsor child too, so don't feel badly. Safa says, the biggest question that will always run through my head after this trip is, how is anything fair? And Safa makes this point, which I think is important. These trips help our students bond with each other in ways that doesn't happen in the classroom. Going on an adventure where you put yourself outside your comfort zone and really are relying on each other for support really bonds students together. So she says, oops, I apologize, let me go back here. I see all of them, the St. Joe students, around every day at school, but I never knew them as people. I never knew or could imagine how big their hearts are. I felt like I made a family on this trip. And that was a common theme that that I heard from students that attended the trip as well, is that they like made connections and friends with people they never would have made friends with on campus. And she says, I was not the same person the minute I decided to go on. I never will be the same person again. I promised myself that from now on, I will work to give. Like, these quotes just like knock me over. The next student that I'm going to talk about is Kim Santos. She is from the class of 2022, and she is a pre-occupational therapy major. Kim is really quiet and like, as a teacher, kind of hard to connect with. And Kim, if you're on the call, I don't mean that offensively. I can totally be this way because I'm super introverted. But she shared with us that she was adopted from Guatemala when she was an infant. And so going on this trip was really emotional for her because she saw what her life could have been like. And she processed that with us in our evening reflections. She told a story about how her mother, her biological mother, when she dropped Kim off for the adoption, sent her with 2 outfits. So in Guatemala, the traditional textiles are used to indicate sort of like what region you're from. So the women wear these amazing, beautiful textiles. So her mom made her a textile outfit for when she was an infant. She wrapped her in this, and that's what she was wearing when she gave her up for adoption. And she also made her another one to wear when she was older. And so Kim still has these textiles. And I was just seeing her like with this little girl on her lap. She just had this like flock of little Guatemalan children around her, and it was so sweet to see. So I'm going to read just a little bit from her paper. There was a little girl named Dolores who I will not forget because she was so quiet and shy. Whenever I would say something to her in Spanish, she would just look at me and smile and not say anything back. I thought it was adorable, and it reminded me a lot of myself when I was younger. Her reaction to someone talking to her was the same way I would act when I was her age, and it made me feel like I had a special connection with this girl. So Kim says, doing this. No, you can't see those slides yet, you guys. My motivation to go on this trip was to help people, and I was excited to be able to go back to the country where I was born. And she says, I knew that Guatemala was poor, but experiencing it in person made me feel upset. I could tell that she was visibly like a little, like now traumatized might be a little bit of a strong word, but she was like, you know, thinking about like what life would have been if she had grown up there. Something I learned about myself is that I am truly at my happiest when making other people happy. All right, so the last student that I'm going to profile is Bobby Mishu. He graduated from St. Joe's in 2014 with degrees in biology and psychology. So Bobby was one of my very first students 10 years ago. So this is Bobby on his first service trip to Guatemala, however many years ago, like eight years ago, maybe. And I'm just gonna read a little bit of something that I wrote up about Bobby. He was one of my very first students when I began teaching at St. Joe's 10 years ago. His exuberant personality, contagious smile, zest for learning, and unflappable joy for life define who Bobby is. And any of you who know Bobby, you know what I'm talking about. He came to St. Joe's to study biology and psychology, and his career path was solidified on a service trip to Guatemala. Here he met Marcos, a little boy who helped haul cinder blocks to the emergency house we were building for his family. So this is a picture of Marcos. So PID builds emergency houses, which are for families that are in very dire need of housing. They're quick to build, they're not meant to be permanent, and they can later be finished. So that's what we were doing. This little boy, Marcos, in this picture is 8 years old. So that can give you an idea of sort of like the effects of poverty on just the physical ability of someone to grow. While we were helping, Marcos fell and injured his arm. Bobby scooped Marcos up and ran with him to the clinic about a mile away. Bobby described feeling helpless because he couldn't do more to help Marcos, and it was in the midst of this helplessness that Bobby solidified his motivation to become a doctor. So Bobby applied for the main track program at Tufts University, which brings Maine students into the pre-med, the MD program at Tufts University, and helps fund their education. So the quotes for the next two slides are directly from the admission essay that Bobby wrote about. He chose the service trips as the topic of his admission essay for med school. So he says, I set out on these trips to help those who were in need, but instead they were the ones who helped me. And the title of Bobby's essay was The Gift. Seeing the destitution that Marcos and the people of Guatemala and Haiti face juxtaposed to the joy and determination that they have despite their difficulties has given a purpose to my education and the motivation to become a doctor. Ultimately, the defining moment of my journey came in Guatemala. From a little boy, as I carried him to a clinic and realized my calling, I would become a doctor and return to Guatemala and Haiti to finish my journey, helping those who helped me without ever asking for anything in return. So this past winter, Bobby did return to Guatemala as one of our trip leaders. So in addition to me, we have a few other chaperones, you can call them chaperones, trip leaders, and we like to tap our alumni who have been on trips before to do this. So Bobby came with his wife, Mary Rose, who's also an alum, and she's a nurse. And Bobby was able to track down Marcos. And the photo on the right here is Bobby reading his med school admission essay to Marcos, who's now 15, and Lorelei translating. And the photo on the left is Bobby asking Marcos if he still had the scar on his arm from when he got injured. And Marcos did have that scar. So just that moment of connection. So I want to tell you guys that Bobby did graduate from Tufts University this spring. He is now a doctor and a master of public health. He's carrying out his residency at Maine Med right now. And he was really excited when I asked him to share his story. We're so proud of him. I think that Bobby epitomizes a growth mindset. So again, anyone who knows Bobby knows this about him. But I think the thing that I'm most proud of is that he was so touched by this experience in Guatemala that he chose to make helping those in need his life's work. So I consider Bobby sort of an example of the effect of the service trips come full circle. So these students go, they have these experiences, they bring them back to school, they sort of internalize them, and then they figure out what they're going to do with them. And so Bobby's action was med school. I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to go back and help these people. So that's the final student that I'm going to profile. So I have a few thank yous that I need to give. I need to thank the students who gave me permission to tell their stories. So Izzy, Lorelei, Safa, Rowan, Kim, and Bobby. And I want to thank the literally hundreds of St. Joe's students who have stepped outside their comfort zones to change and be changed by the world around them. As I said, we've had over 600 participants in the last 16 years. I needed to thank my husband, Steve, because literally the first day we ever met, he's like, you should come on a service trip. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I'd never been outside of the country, outside of Canada. So he really like sparked this in me. And I need to thank St. Joe's, who has continually supported this transformative experience over the years. And I also want to thank Partners in Development for 16 years of amazing collaboration that just keeps on going, and I love it. Thank you, Gail. And I need to thank the advancement staff for being open to and facilitating this presentation. So Stephanie and Joanne, thank you. So this picture is our group from last year at Lake Atilan in front of a volcano. So that's where I'm going to end. So let's see here. I'm going to do this. So I want to know if anyone has any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Camilla. So now it's time for us to have the opportunity to ask questions. I have a comment that I shared with Camilla, but I want you all to know that, you know, Bobby's acceptance into the Main Tracks program, the person who sort of manages that, Dr. Joe Linder, had said to me, you know, because of his application and who he is as a student, she will never not look seriously at an applicant from St. Joseph's. So I thought that was quite a strong testimony to not only this experience he had, Camilla, but who he is and who the students that you have in your biology class and such are and become because of your enthusiasm for teaching. So thank you for doing that.
I don't take much credit for their raw talent and and enthusiasm and excitement, but I do think that providing them those opportunities can like spark flames in their brains about what they're passionate about. So
yeah. Well, and it's obvious that you absolutely love what you do, and
yeah.
I think all of us who are on this program, and certainly all of our faculty, you know that it's your heart that really gives to these students, and that's the gift you receive.
Thank you. Yeah.
When you see them grow. It's just the culture of who we are at St. Joseph's. So comments, questions, please jump in. And let's see if anybody has any questions or comments they'd like to share with Camilla. Be shy.
I'd just like to share that in 2005, I went to Guatemala on a humanitarian trip, and your story really resonated with me because I so much of that I saw as well. And I think it's great that you did this trip with your students and that you got to share with them. And I think a lot of the things that you said about even though their circumstances are there's so much poverty, that they're still so joyful and still are able to see the good in everything. So I just want to thank you for sharing your story, and
yeah,
it really was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Hi, Lorelai.
Hi. So I kind of joined last minute. I joined in when you guys were kind of talking about me, and I started crying in my car, and when I was driving, it was really good. But you know, it's that trip changed my life, and I think that I mentioned that, you know, I come from a poor country too. There were some days when I didn't have something to eat all day, but I've never saw poverty that extreme, and it changed my life in a good way. And I feel like everyone at some point of their lives should go to a mission trip. And, you know, I can't wait to go back, and hopefully this pandemic gets a little better, that we can go back. And even though I graduated from St. Joe's, I'm definitely planning to go back.
We would love to have you back, Lorelai.
I would love to go. Yeah, I'm planning on it.
Good. It's so good to see you.
Oh, good to see you. I love that yellow on you, by the way.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who I spoke about who's on the call other than Lorelai? Do you have anything else that you want to say, Lorelai?
I miss the food. But no, I think that will be it.
Okay. Thank you for chiming in. I see Rowan, but if Rowan's busy, we're not gonna bug her.
I was gonna say something super quick. I still have contact with Dulce. with all of them through Facebook. And, you know, they're always asking me like, oh, with Sergio too, like, oh, I hope you come back soon and stuff like that. And it feels good because you actually, like, we left like something in them, you know, like we did something good and they remember you. So it's really nice.
Yeah, I agree.
Camilla, what kind of preparation do the students have before they take these service trips? I'm sure so many of them have no idea what they're getting into. So what do you and the faculty do to prepare our students?
Yeah, so we have regular meetings throughout the fall semester. We meet about 5 or 6 times. And we go over just some like general like logistical stuff. But we also, depending on what country the students are traveling to, usually we send groups to Haiti and Guatemala. We haven't been able to send a group to Haiti in a few years because of the political unrest, but we provide them with an education about the culture of the country that they're going to, how that country became so poor, sort of like what the circumstances were historically that led to that. We talk about a little bit of conversational language in both Creole and Spanish. And we talk about what it's going to be like, because it's different than the United States, like their living accommodations. When we say hotel in Guatemala, that means something different than maybe what a hotel in the United States looks like. And we really, really try to I'll use vibe, that they just with an open mind. We want them to come here with an open mind. If we want them to try the food, we want them to try the experiences, we want them to really immerse themselves in the situation. So it's sort of like just some cultural and historical information that we provide for them to help get them ready. Because it is, even with that, it's shocking. Once you step off the airplane, you're like, oh my gosh, just like having your senses filled with this whole new country and this whole new culture. But yeah, so we have those pre-trip meetings, and then we all meet at Logan Airport, usually at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we fly off to wherever we're going. So
amazing. And how do I don't mean to be asking all the questions, so you all have to chime in, but if you could you also speak about the service trips that, you know, or spring break? I know that's a little bit perhaps off your direct responsibility, but you've been engaged in that, and you certainly know all the students that have been going to those spring break trips.
So the Spring Break Work Fest is run through the Mercy Center, and those students, I think they go for the entire week. So they go to poorer areas of the United States, which there are, and PID actually has a site in rural Mississippi where they work with communities. But our students go, and I think they largely work on like Habitat for Humanity housing. And those trips are also bonding and transformative in similar ways as the international service trips. And I don't mean to compare like poverty here to poverty in the countries where we travel, but there is very high levels of poverty in pockets in the United States, absolutely. The level of poverty that we see on the service trips is like very shocking. So I would say that's probably a difference. Poverty in the United States is different than it is in Haiti and Guatemala. It's just, we have different societal structures, we have different culture. So it just looks different, but I think the overall experience is similar, where those students are hugely benefited by helping someone, you know, less fortunate than themselves. I want to say that the stories that I shared, I shared like five students, 6 student stories. this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we've taken over, you know, hundreds of St. Joe students on these trips and have been really changed by them. So this is like a tiny little slice of that giant pie. And if any of you on this call are interested in attending a St. Joe service trip, there's a possibility that we can make that happen. We've never had to turn away anyone who wants to go on a service trip. We've always found room for everyone. Partners in development. Let me see here. I'm gonna provide their website. Is the organization we travel with, and they run trips throughout the year. So it's our group is just one that goes. So if anyone's interested in helping PID or in going on a trip themselves, this is the link to go to. I just put it in the chat for everyone. Do I have, oh, that's a good question, Amanda. So my friend Amanda asked, do I have a story of my own transformative experience? I do, but it's not as like profound. I think the first time that I went to Guatemala, so the first service trip I went to was to Guatemala. I've been to both Guatemala and Haiti. I was like I said, when you get off that plane for the first time, it just hits you in the face, and you're just driving through Guatemala City. And the village where we work is about 3 hours outside of the city. So we take this long ride, like past volcanoes and like sugarcane fields, and it's beautiful. Just when you see people living in like houses that are just pieces of wood, like plywood with like fabric, and they have dirt floors, like it just, like you can see pictures of it online and whatever, like seeing it in real person, it's just like such a different experience. And I just remember, like I'm a very like sensory person, and just the smells and the sights really just permeated me. And I remember actually coming back to the United States having a really hard time being in normal American society after that. I was like, this is unreal that I can go to the grocery store and choose from 100 different types of soup on this shelf right now. You know, like it was just, I remember being in Walmart because I was like, I don't have any food, I need to go grocery shopping, and just being like, I don't even know if I can stay in this store right now. It was just so overwhelming to me what we have and take for granted in this country. So I think, Amanda, that was pretty transformative for me. Going to Haiti for the first time was also really shocking. Haiti is just, is a rough place. It's so poor, even poorer than Guatemala by far. And just getting off the plane and walking out into like the blazing sun in Haiti, with like hundreds of people just like trying to like get your attention, trying to, you know, like yelling. Haiti is like, it's just like a bright, hot place, and it's a little harsher than Guatemala. So I would say that was pretty transformative for me too, like seeing the level of poverty in Guatemala, and then going to Haiti and seeing like a whole new level of poverty has really changed my outlook and how I live my life and what I prioritize. So yeah, like first world problems are like 99.9% of my problems. So thanks for asking that question, Amanda.
Camilla, I know you keep in touch with students, right? Many of the students who experienced the service trips, and there was talk of maybe having a sort of a reunion or a gathering. Is that still something you and Steve would like to do?
We tried to shoot for last year, which was the 15-year anniversary. But we're always wanting to gather with alumni. I think that if you've been on a service trip, it allows you to relate to each other in a different way than people that haven't been on a service trip before. And I don't mean that to sound exclusive at all. But it's really nice to reconnect and reminisce and reinvigorate the reasons why that trip was important and still is important in our lives today. So yeah, we're always open to that.
Great.
So I'm sending you guys my email address. If any of you after this talk have questions or are interested in learning more, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I can answer questions or I can connect you to other people. And I'm always happy to promote this opportunity and promote Partners in Development, which is an organization doing incredible things for people living in extreme poverty. And if Gail is still here, I'm gonna just like, Gail Hull is like she's the best person. She's one of the best people I know. She started and runs Partners in Development. So I just need to give her endless props.
Camilla, I'm wondering in this last moment here, if you would talk a little bit more about your artistic abilities in jewelry making and
Sure.
about how that.
Yeah, I should pull. Let me see if I can. So one of the things that I do in my spare time, which I don't have much of because I also have a three-year-old who does not go to daycare. You guys, I'm going to share my screen here if I can. So what I'm going to show you is the Partners in Development Etsy website. They sell crafts from Haiti and Guatemala, and they also sell the jewelry that I help design. So my husband cuts gemstones as a side hobby. Ask me how sad I am about that. I get beautiful presents all the time. But he took a faceting machine to Haiti and started a gem cutting program down there. So there are Haitians working through the Partners in Development compound, cutting gemstones. They send them back to the United States and I set them into jewelry and we sell them, and it becomes a continual fundraiser for Partners in Development, and it becomes a source of income for the Haitians that do the work. So let me share screen. I'm going to show you their Etsy website, and you can see some examples. So these are some of the crafts. Let me get to. So the stones that you're seeing in these jewelry pieces are literally garbage that was picked up on the side of the road. So in Haiti and in Guatemala too, they don't have like the trash guy that comes along and picks up your garbage. They burn their garbage, and glass doesn't burn. So there's a lot of like refuse glass on the streets, and they collect it and then they facet it into these beautiful gemstones. And like I mentioned, they send them back to the United States, and I facet them into jewelry. And then they're a source of income for Partners in Development, which, as I mentioned, is doing like incredible stuff for people living in poverty. Yes, those are my ears. I like take pictures of all of the jewelry that I set. So if you're interested in some jewelry, I'll paste this link into the chat here too. Oh, you got it. Sammy's got it. She's on it. Okay, so let me just give a shout out to Sammy Pinard, who's on this talk too, who went on a service trip and was changed, and of her own accord learned how to speak Haitian Creole, went back and did an internship, and now works for Partners in Development. So Sammy, thank you for posting the website. Another St. Joe student transformed by the service trip experience. Let's see. Rosemary wrote, do the students have the chance to share these experiences? You know what? It's hard because we go over break and then like we come back and the new semester starts and we haven't really found a forum to gather everyone to share these stories. I would love to make that happen. We've talked about it everywhere. We're like, we need to tell these stories to the greater community, but we just haven't. So Rosemary, that's on our to-do list, to just have like a open, I don't know, like a talk for just for anyone who wants to come and hear the stories and see the photos. So no, but yes, we want to.
Any other questions or comments to present to Camilla? Any points? Boy, this has been so really enlightening to see these wonderful photographs and to get these incredible transformative stories of what our students have experienced. So Camilla, we can't thank you enough for all the hard work that you and Steve present to these service trips. It's been amazing.
It's one of the highlights of my year every year. I mean, it's just renewing for me. It's a renewal to go down there and just really reassess, you know, my priorities in life. It really is. So it's definitely my, it benefits me to do it as well, you know, like in a really good emotional way. But yeah, bringing students down to these countries is probably one of my favorite things that I do at St. Joe's. I love science. I love teaching biology. I'm totally a science nerd, so don't get me wrong, but the service trips just like the cherry on top of what I get to do here. So.
Well, thank you again. This has been wonderful. And for all of you who are participating, just know this is a series that will take place throughout 2021. Front Row with the Faculty is the second and fourth Wednesday of every month at 4 o'clock. And you'll have an opportunity to meet with our wonderful faculty, learn a little bit more about them and what they do for our students and what they do for the world. Thank you so much, Camilla, for everything.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you everyone for coming. It was really great. I hope that you were like, you know, moved by these stories. And I appreciate you taking the hour out of your day to listen to them.
Take good care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.